Thanks so much for your energetic conversations and enthusiasm this afternoon. If I could ask you to take your seats and give your attention to our next panel. So we have the modest task of coming up with solutions to all of the grand challenges that were discussed earlier this afternoon. But we have several panelists who I am confident will rise to the occasion and provide lots of good suggestions and things for us all to think about. The panel will follow the same kind of format as we had in the previous one. We'll invite them to come up and make short individual presentations, and then we'll have a group discussion and then engage the audience with more Q&A. I should also apologize for the false advertising earlier about the lack of coffee in the auditorium, but I promise that there will be a reception afterwards, so never fear on that score. Just before we launch into it, I thought I would say a couple of things just to articulate somewhat what these humanitarian needs are. And I know that we all, many of us work in the field and understand it, but I think it's important to think about, okay, when we talk about humanitarian assistance, what is that? Is it access to food? Is it access to safe water and safe hygiene? Is it access to education? We heard earlier that some of these refugee situations where the humanitarian assistance goes in with the expectation that they'll likely be there for 7 years, or the average displaced person might be away from their homes for 17 years. What does that mean for a whole generation of young people who need to find education, who need to find jobs, who need to find some kind of meaningful infusion intellectually and with their community into their lives? So I think trying to think about that, and then who knew that insurance could be a humanitarian need? I found that so fascinating and counterintuitive, but really worth exploring and interesting. So on the flip side, when we think about innovation, how are we going to go to meet some of those needs? And you'll hear some of those ideas then on the panel this afternoon. You'll hear about the need for communication. That is, you hear stories about people coming out of Syria, and even if they don't have safe food or safe water, the thing that they're going to prioritize almost above all is having that cell phone, being able to access through social media their communities and their families, to stay in touch and let them know that they have arrived at the other end of their destination safely. So we'll hear from Internews about some of the projects that they're working on to be able to assist refugees in that situation. We also heard this morning about the need for the combination of philanthropy with a strong business model, and to think about not just both of those things coming in from the outside and being introduced into the community externally, but then to have them rather be taken up internally within the communities, and to have that real grassroots and homegrown involvement in trying to come up with some sustainable model for economic development and security. So I'm really pleased that we're going to have representatives from a number of these sectors in the panel this afternoon. We'll have Allison Campbell from Internews come up first, followed by Emily Jacoby at Digital Democracy, and then Douglas Sabo from Visa.